I'm working on my Bockingford watercolor paper that has been underpainted with watercolor, Winsor & Newton pan watercolors, and I've used Indian ink and also some opaque gouache. Now I'm coming in with my set of 120 Schminky extra soft pastels. I'm only using half a dozen different colorings with this. First thing I'm doing is getting in the light rays. It's one of the features that I find with the rainforest. You'll often see the light rays because there's so much dense canopy and the light is not breaking through evenly. You'll actually see the streaks of light, and it's one of the things that I'm trying to convey with this work is the feeling of the rainforest. Now I'm going to use a lemon yellow, same color that I've used in the watercolor paints before it, and try to pick up some of the catch lights. It's been quite a challenging week. First of all, my editing programs were playing up with the amount of editing that I was doing, and I've had to consider upgrading. And then my beautiful Sennheiser microphone, which has got wonderful noise cancelling qualities and gives a very clear dictation into my videos, that failed on me. So I've actually spent the money to buy a new one of those, including Express Post. So hopefully I'll have that ready for next week's videos and you'll get a crisper voiceover. And yes, and my camera's turned up a few times during production, so if it's not one thing, it's the other. But, well, if we're watercolorists and artists, we're used to dealing with challenges, aren't we? So there's worse things that can happen than those. I'm still enjoying myself. Now, remember I used ultramarine blue as my main watercolor. So in the pastels, when I go in with a blue, I'm still using tones of ultramarine blue, just varying them. You'll tend to find with a pastel that a pastel color will come out in about 5 to 7 shades, depending on the brand. And you'll be able to get the shade that's got the maximum white in it, the shade that's got the maximum of black in it. You'll get the pure colour, and then the tones either side. So I've used several different shades of the ultramarine blue in this work. Now the same thing happened. I've used Viridian green in my watercolour, and so I've picked up the same blue-green in my pastel, but I have it here available in several different shades. And I'm going in and I'm adding little touches. I'm trying to build forward the depths. A rainforest is, if it's one thing, there's depth to it. So we're trying to convey the feeling of far off distance, the middle distance, and the depth. Of course, the more I develop my rainforest, the more my young lady, my girl, is going out of focus. And so the next stage of this painting, which will be the 7th stage, the one that I'll be planning as I complete this stage, I'm going to need to go in and work on the young lady again. So for the moment, we're working into that distance, trying to get the feeling of the light streaming through between the tree canopies. And we're doing it both with the lemon yellows and the blue greens. I am loving working with extra soft pastels. Now here I'm using a red brown. So basically this would be equivalent of my having used the cadmium red in the watercolor and having added either a bit of the yellow or a little bit of the blue to it to mute it and change the tone. Now I'll be honest with you, I'm nearly 73 and I can't remember whether this is my eldest daughter when she was 11 years old in a rainforest in California, or my youngest daughter at about the same stage on a family holiday in Tara Valley, Victoria, Australia. So it's interesting that there really isn't a great deal of difference between different parts of the world. That's something that has always struck me. Everywhere I've gone in the world, I've seen mountain shapes that are so similar to mountains that I've seen at home in Australia. And I know that when I was in this rainforest in California, Northern California, on the coast, I felt so much at home, so much like my own country. So yeah, California was very much like that. It made me feel very much at home, very much like southeastern Australia and also parts of southern Western Australia. This is one of my daughters, either one, I just don't remember which. It's a long time ago now. You try remembering back 60 years to which daughter it is in a photo if you haven't marked it. Now, I'm wanting to develop 3D by building up foreground in front of this log. I feel that this log going across the water, although it was there in the photograph, is too stiff. And I'm sitting here seriously considering, and have been for several stages of painting, whether I'm going to put a tree right up through the front of this painting or not. Like I'd considered whether or not I was going to put rosellas into the painting. And then I've introduced the extra warmth by putting a little bit of warm red browns into these trees. And have basically decided against using the rosellas, but I'm still seriously considering developing more depths with extra tree trunks or fallen branches in the foreground. And what I'm going to do is I'll be doing some research. So between completing this stage and starting the next, I'll be going back through all my sketchbooks and past images that I've done as suggestions for paintings, basically going on a rainforest trip through images and looking to decide if this needs more in the foreground to increase the feeling of depth into this rainforest. I don't think you can put too much depth in. And of course, I'm also going to need to have a stage where I work more on the young girl, because of having worked so much on the painting. Everything has to be done considering the entire painting. You can't just work in one area in isolation and not try to see how that work affects the whole painting. I am happy with what's going on with the painting. It's a challenging work, I'll acknowledge. I took 10 years off from painting after having painted professionally for 50 years. I then took 10 years off to write novels, and although I didn't forget how to paint in that time, I wasn't painting full-time 7 days a week, long stints like I had been. And then of course I was dealing with age, which has changed things. I can't paint for as long as I used to, and so I've had to basically start again in many ways. And because through my professional life I worked in watercolors and oils, I'm loving pastels because I hadn't worked in it as much. So it's actually a newer medium for me to work with. So there's the excitement of something new. I'm enjoying it very much. Now, it sounds strange to say a new pastelist when I've won awards in pastels dating back 50, 40 years ago. But that just shows that what you learn in one medium, you transfer across to another. So because I trained in oils and watercolor, I was able to do pastels. And you will find that too. What you learn in one medium will help you in another.